Welcome, everyone. I am thrilled that you are here. I'm Pastor Jim. If we haven't yet met, and now we have, but so good to be with you tonight. Thanks for coming to this Lenten Explore the Bible series called Four Witnesses to the Truth. Yeah, it is a series that I'm hopeful will, I don't know, inspire you or bring more clarity to things. Because I'll let you know, when I started out, I I really had like, okay, I want to know the truth. Ha! Went to seminary to learn the truth. And these gospels were not always saying the same thing or saying it in the same way, or dare say they were sometimes contradicting each other. It's like, good heavens, why? Who am I supposed to believe? It was my dilemma. Was one more reliable? So I should just listen to, say, Mark here, because he had it all right. I don't know if he had the most reliable truth. And then I thought, well, maybe I should just pay attention really to what's in all four of them. That would be the absolute, unrefutable truth. There's not a lot that's all in all four of them. I hate to tell you this. Then there was the idea, well, maybe we just mash them all together and that makes a good composite truth. Oh, we'll talk about that too, why that one is maybe an issue. But that is where I started the journey. And when I first did this series, a couple churches ago, it was an eye opener for me as we went forward. What I learned is that our Bible doesn't just contain one cohesive story about the life of Jesus, which all four of these authors are going to tell us about the life of Jesus, but rather we have not just one of the greatest stories ever told, we have four of the greatest stories ever told. So in this time of Lent, we're going to be looking at them, looking at each one's uniqueness, each one's when did they write this? Where were they writing this from? Who were they writing it to? Why were they writing it this way? And we will then begin to really appreciate the message that is in Matthew and Mark and Luke and John as we move forward. We'll start though today by not diving into any one right now, but you need to have a sort of a firm groundwork, shall we say. Let's cover some of the basics, okay? And make sure that is where we know we're starting from. Then we'll get into exploring all this about purpose and audience and all those great things. Yeah, they are going to have great impact, but we need to listen for it, okay? And so our four gospels are all similar, and yet they're all unique. Okay, but before we dive into all of that, I just need to put together a little framework of my own, a little groundwork. I want to let you know that there's another participant or two or three, hopefully on that camera back there. We are experimenting with virtual live. Anyone there today?
Not yet.
Not yet. They will, though, because many people have told me, oh, I want to do this. It's either going to be live. I don't have breakout rooms if they do come live yet for them, but we'll figure it out. They're going to be on Zoom, and Christian is here to help navigate all of that.
And new tech.
I'll let you know this is a brand new speaker / microphone.
It picks up a wide area.
It will hear you, so that whoever is off site hopefully will hear you, and then when they speak, you will hear them rather than it all coming mysteriously to me. But I always try to tell people in the front, I guess that's you, don't be, just don't make it. You're good. Okay, just control yourself this time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you know too, each session may be recorded, and it will be available then for those who want to watch it at their own time schedule. So be aware of that. Information presented has been thoroughly researched. What I mean by that is I did my homework on this one. I have had resources that probably I looked at easily a dozen different current seminary professors that are out there. pulled in materials from Adam Hamilton, if you happen to know Adam Hamilton, research theologians, commentators, and good old Wikipedia itself has informed us. So I have looked at all of their combined and many thoughts. I am not about to announce their name every time I quote them. Okay, good deal. I'm not going to say, and so said this, because it will just distract from what we're all about. But that's called resourcing, not plagiarism. Okay, just to be clear. If I had to come up with every single unique idea on my own, that doesn't build on what our faith is all about. So I am going to be using all of them. I also want to encourage you not to get hung up on what I'm going to say is to give us this overview type of thing, but you're not going to come along. And I don't want you to say, oh, but look, in chapter 4, verse 79, it says this, which, okay, this wasn't my doctoral dissertation. Okay, this was not, this was just a series that I want you to know. There may be parts that maybe it's not exactly all going to jive, but then again, our commentators had the same problem and they don't agree either on everything. So let's just say we're looking for a better understanding of things, but try not to get bogged down in the details. All right. I will be giving you some details to look at. But what you are about to hear, I feel, is a very logical and at the same time inspirational overview of each gospel, and to shed some new insights and new understandings about what each author has to say. Questions so far? Good. I have a question to get us started. In your table groups, share with each other the following. Which title, I need the next slide. Which titles do you prefer when you are referring to Jesus? It's a personal thing. There's no right or wrong answer. Do you care to think of Jesus as the Messiah, a rabbi, teacher, redeemer, rabbi, redeemer, king, anointed one, or B, the crucified one, savior, advocate, deliverer, God with us, C, a friend of sinners, master, Lord, Prince of Peace, or D, the good shepherd, the Lamb of God, the bread of life, the word of God? You have about 2 to 3 minutes to share with each other. Now I know you're going to go, I want those two and that one and that one and that one. Okay, but you have to choose one. Okay, you have to choose one. Just where you lean the more. You can like them all, but take 2 or 3 minutes and talk to each other at your tables about this.
Recent worship series kind of covered deal. Our recent worship series kind of covered deal. Yeah, I guess. I think I've got everything. It is.
All right, let's come back together again. All right. I know this is a very talkative group will go on, but I'll give you more opportunities to talk. So I'm just curious, how many of you chose A as your favorite? Not a one. How many of you chose B as maybe your favorite? Okay, 3 or so of you. C, how many of you like C? And how many like D? Wow, Sunday's group about 80% like D, that would just letting you know. Not that there's a right or wrong, but I'll let you know just to be aware for your own journey. If you chose A, you might resonate real well with Matthew, who will go with a lot of those terms. B is Mark. C, of course, is Luke, and D is John. Now, we're not going to get into all that right now, but you might want to pay attention not only to what titles you like with Jesus, but also which of these authors is going to resonate a message that relates to you. Okay.
Somebody who works in survey society. I'm not sure it's fair to ask this question after our senior pastor preached on D.
Yeah, you've kind of been filled up with a lot of D stuff, haven't you? Yeah, that wasn't intentional, but you will be aware then. You have been influenced. By the way, do you remember which gospel she was preaching from? Of course. You got it. Yeah, she's preaching from John on those. I'm not surprised. That's where they are.
We actually picked one from A and one from B.
Yeah.
C and D.
You're gonna like them all. Or not, as you go. We'll see. I threw a question at the beginning. I'm going to answer now. Now, why not blend all these together into a composite, which is what we do often in churches. Here, let's take this, and now we'll take this and we'll put it together and have a good lesson for you. Sometimes we preachers do it in the same breath, but our challenge right now is to not do that. Okay. So I'm going to ask this question, and it's, again, no right or wrong answers, but I need you to spontaneously, without thinking, to shout out these answers to me. Okay. What are some of your favorite things for breakfast? Lucky Charms and yogurt and coffee. And what about lunch? What do you like for lunch? Pizza and soup and bagels. And bagels. Leftovers. Yeah, there you go. How about dinner? Oh, yeah. Northern Africa. Is that what you said? Wow, excellent.
Ribs.
The ribs.
Yeah.
And for those who have not spoken yet, desserts. What do you eat for dessert? Chocolate. What else could there be? But all right. Now, and ice cream and lots of good stuff. So my question is, do you then mix them all together in order to somehow have a better food or drink? Our granddaughter visited this last weekend. She's about 5, and she's our little Clara. She is playing with her sister in make-believe land, and she is off mixing something up in a bowl. And I asked her what she's mixing up, and she had very specific answers. It's cupcake and cake and broccoli soup. I went, say that again? It's a cupcake, cake, broccoli soup. That did not sound real good to me. No. Now you know what you're dealing with. When she comes and talks a lot at you, that's what she's thinking. Yeah, some things are best taken together, but sometimes things are best taken separately.
Yeah.
Take them in. Blending them together doesn't necessarily make them always better. Sometimes we end up with a mess. Oh, it's still sort of there, but it's not quite what we expected. We often end up with an unclear conglomeration of inconsistent and sometimes even, like I said, contradictory sayings and things going on in these gospel stories. If we mix them all together, some things are best hot, some things are best cold. I don't think the whole thing was meant to be pureed together. Okay. So our gospel writers are like four different food providers, different foods. Their words are all going to be good. They're all going to be healthy for us, but they're not meant to all be just blended together. They were sometimes very intentionally put side by side in a certain order with other things, not to be paired up with this other thing. So we'll pay attention to that. A distinctive four-course meal is about to be laid before us in the Bible. Actually, the more satisfying way is going to be ultimately to engage each of these four gospel writers on their own terms. Let them tell us what this all means in their way. Allow each one to speak. Oh, they're not vying for what's the most reliable truth. They're not fighting over what is the most unquestionable truth. They're not looking for put it all together and have a more complete truth. They're here to tell us the gospel truth, the good news. Good news of Jesus Christ in their unique and powerful way. The truth lies not exclusively in what each one tells us, but in the ways that they share the good news of Christ with their intended audiences. Okay? We are reading not just like history or a set of teachings. I mean, in Mark, you get a lot of history. This is what happened. Bing, 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 bing. Matthew will take us into a lot of the teachings. He's the teaching one. Here's what he said. Here's what we should do. No, we are reading the witnesses to people who are attesting to their faith. I am telling you about my faith in this one. Here's why this is of interest to me. Here's the setting. Here's the purpose. Each one, it's like when I have confirmation class and they're about to be confirmed, I make them write a statement of faith. No two were ever alike, but they all gave witness to their faith. And so each one is going to come up with like a different lens, which we see the picture through. With me so far? Yeah. Each one has distinct colors, has different variations. Therefore, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John all have us looking at the same Jesus with a different lens through which you'll see it. Some of the differences will be distinct, easy to tell. Some will be subtle. I'll help you through those parts because sometimes it's like, are you paying attention to there? He didn't say that. He did not say that. He did not say that. We mash it all together. Oh, Advent and Christmas, we just mash it all together. I hate to tell you, but there's not one story that has shepherds and wise men written down on the same page. Oh, no. So your challenge, which was my challenge too, is to work real hard to not bring in those other parts when you're reading one at a time. Try real hard to just listen, to read just what is just Matthew saying to us. With me so far? All right. Got the idea. Yeah, altogether we have four witnesses. We have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John reflecting on the life and death and resurrection in their own way. And nothing is more distinctive than the opening words of each one. So let's begin there. Here are, again, working in your table groups. Let's see the next slide if we could. Don't need to read tons and tons. I just get the first parts of it. Mark, first several. What about Matthew? What is going on there? What's going on in the first four verses of Luke? What about John? And You know, if you're new to the Bible at all, it's about, 3/4 of the way back. Help each other in case someone is still looking to find their way around this complex book. We're talking about those that are starting in the New Testament there. What I want you to do is work in your table groups. Choose one of these. Sunday's group failed miserably at this. They just tried to do all 4 of them. I want you to just look at one. Just look at one. That's all you got to look at. Try to answer these questions, and you will not know the answer. Just guess. Don't worry about having the correct answer. This is not a test. This is just to get your brain warmed up. What do the words indicate to you about their audiences, their styles of writing, or their intentions for starting as they did? And 2, how does this prepare you to hear in the appropriate way what lies ahead? Understand? Okay, if you want to look at more than one, you can do that, but work as a table group and just, we'll see where we go from there. Okay, we'll take a look. Again, you've got about 3 or 4 minutes. 3 or 4 minutes total.
Time, right? It takes him. Actually, names.
And you just
Well, yeah.
Probably should. I was trying to focus, other things.
He's got it right.
Message.
Oh, yeah.
Others, I mean.
Translation.
Let me just start with Midley.
Yeah.
The news of.
They start. Yeah, he's sort of very English, a little more. So. Yeah, he's, again, he's establishing.
I have 2.
That's Jesus.
That's really weird. Did it somehow go? I don't know why.
We did the easy one. So.
Yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
about how we.
Very early Christian.
Right.
He's trying to lay it out. Not even 20 pages long.
Yeah.
Yes, that's really.
Only.
All right, wrap up your thoughts, come back together again. All right, let's see which groups dealt with Mark. We have a couple groups that dealt with Mark, okay, and if Christian will click the slide for me, you can keep talking, I guess, through me, but I just need the slides to keep going. For those who didn't deal with Mark, this is how it starts, the beginning of the good news about Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God, as it is written in Isaiah the prophet, I will send my messenger ahead of you who will prepare your way. A voice of one calling in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make straight paths for him. Got any insights into those, who's he talking to, or what's this, where's he going with all this?
He's talking to the early Christians because he's the oldest writer.
Jewish Christians.
Okay, there's a Christian, Jewish Christians. He is the first writer. Sure enough, he is. We'll get to that too.
Because they're talking about Messiah and all of that, so that's.
Yeah.
They're talking about John the Baptist.
You're right. They're alluding to John the
Right,
Baptist. You're exactly right. You've got some good guesses already going on. You pay attention to all this. Yeah, who is he writing to? Oh, he's writing to that.
And he's referring to Isaiah, so he's legitimizing Jesus by saying, this is the guy Isaiah was talking about.
Ta-da! Oh, listen to the man in the front. I guess listen to me too. Here's what I have down for my little synopsis. Mark says the earliest of our gospels, ding, ding, ding. It offers Jesus who is, okay, in Mark, we're going to go through a timeline. Mark, he is going to really have a Jesus who is really quite human throughout the whole thing. Okay? He's going to emphasize that more than the divine. He is going to be recognizably human throughout. The underlying figure is of this historical Jesus who was essentially, well, let's compare him to a prophet, an extraordinary prophet. And what better way to introduce is to have the preeminent prophet of the Old Testament, Isaiah, introduce him, along with the charismatic, probably very popular prophet of the current day, John the Baptist, all lining things up and saying, guess what? You think these were great? It's going to be even more so with this one I'm going to tell you about. Yeah, there is ancient words of promise going to happen throughout Mark, and they're just blossoming into fulfillment as we go. It is happening here and now is what we're to keep hearing in Mark, and all that from the first couple sentences. Let's take a look though at how the other gospels begin. Who had Matthew maybe as a focus? Nope. Okay. We'll all do it together too. Let's look at Matthew. Oh, the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah. This is the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac was the father of Jacob. Jacob was the father of Judah and his brothers, and on 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 until we get to verse 17. And thus there were 14 generations in all, from Abraham to David, 14 from David to the exile to Babylon, and 14 from the exile to the Messiah. I just want to ask the crowd, do you care about all this stuff? You just sort of look like me when I skim over that and go, so-and-so begat, so-and-so begat, so-and-so does the king, so-and-so and had that.
Well, we're American. We don't really care about where you came from.
Melting pots get confusing, so let's.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to us who your daddy was.
So maybe we're not, but who would that matter to?
The Jews.
The Jews, they're.
There's a lot of that in the First Testament.
Mhm.
He's tying the Messiah to the big native guys in the past and saying this legitimizes Jesus.
Again,
He's blood here.
watch this, and don't miss this bottom part.
Yeah.
Who in the world could control that? But God. You kidding me? 14 generations, and here comes the next one. 14 generations, and here comes the next one. This is a God of control, of order, of I have this all laid out for you. Bum, ba-da, bum, ba-da, bum. And now look who's here. It's Jesus. Oh yeah. Matthew is going to open that whole thing up. Matthew's account is methodical. We Methodists should like Matthew. Very methodical from the very start, introducing Jesus through this lineage of God's chosen people, which is a hint. This is obviously written not to outsiders, it is written to insiders of this faith communities. People who care about Jewish ancestry, ding, 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 you get gold stars there, who value the lineage of former kings, rather patriarchal. No surprise there, but there it all is laid out. Yeah, Orderly accounts are a mark of a strong leader. Rhythmic patterns reflect a design spanning the generations, as we said, something that only God can control. And for Matthew, writing a decade or more, we'll do the timeline here before we're done. Writing about a decade or more after Mark, Jesus's status is going to become a little more elevated now. He thus calls for a special witness to his conception and birth. He is born, you see now in Matthew, of a virgin. We make a point about that. Matthew casts Jesus' birth under majestic stars, or maybe one in particular, majestic star, as a sign from God Almighty. Pay attention to this one. And he is visited by 3 traveling dignitaries bearing gifts which are fit for none other than a king. A king. Probably Mary and Joseph could use diapers and a rattle and a teething bar, but instead they got gold, frankincense, and myrrh because this is a king. Go ahead.
Is there something symbolic about number 14?
I don't have that answer at hand. Is there something symbolic about the number 14? There's lots of numbers.
There's
And I will say there are lots of numbers that, yes, are significant. I haven't heard anything about 14, but I bet you this isn't something there. So,
What makes it point to 14 a couple of times?
Yeah.
Well, there's so much numerology in Bible.
oh
12 is a big number.
Yeah.
yeah,
7.
And the foundation, when it is a.
oh yeah. It was a lot of symbology, meaning it's meant to convey something rather than, oh, look, it was exactly 40 days and sun came up and went down 40 times. It's, there's something more to it than just the number. So, all right. Doing well. Any other? Okay. 2 other gospels to go. Gosh darn, they don't start the same way either as these other first 2. So anyone look at Luke? The back table looked at Luke. All right. Let's take a look at Luke and have maybe a few guesses from the back. First 4 verses. Many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed down to us by those who, from the first, were eyewitnesses and servants of the word. With this in mind, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I too decided to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, so that you may know the certainty of the things you have been taught. Ideas back table about audience, or how we're supposed to hear this, or what's going on, or don't worry about getting it wrong, just
Well, I've always loved Luke the most.
okay.
It's the most literary and most intimate. I mean, John is intimate, is deeper in that personal relationship with God, or like we and John, but for the liberal end of the spectrum, Luke is just the most intimate, and it's the most well written of the Gospels. So I always loved it, and it was interesting to me to read that it was written as if to, at least metaphorically, an individual.
Ah,
And I wonder if that's part of why it feels intimate to me.
sure.
Who's Theophilus?
Theophilus is not clearly identified, but the Acts are also dedicated to Theophilus.
Oh,
Well, it says here in these notes,
yeah.
Luke probably wanted to tell the story for Gentiles, non-Jews like Theophilus.
You got it.
There's speculation in my notes that because in Acts, the Theophilus character is referred to as Your Excellency, it might be a little addition.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna ban all commentary Bibles from now on. So No, I am kidding, because I think that's how you learn. You pick up these little tidbits along the way as you read, you know? No, you're doing very well. This is not an insider conversation with Jews. No. Luke, you're right, his style is different.
But that's part of why it's so late, right? Because Paul's ministry to the Gentiles was so late.
His was first, actually.
Well, but I mean, he started off. He had to have that vision of the end.
Oh.
Before he started focusing on
Well,
ministering to the Gentiles. So the Gentiles heard the stories later, so he would think that the chronology of when it gets recorded.
we'll get the chronology here. Before you're out of here today, we'll get the chronology, so.
It's not meant for Jews, because nowhere do we tell where Jesus, we don't reference David. We don't reference David at all here.
David who?
David who?
Yeah.
Was that kid in the giant? I don't know. I mean, so
Right.
that's not referenced here. His genealogy is not referenced. It's, we do talk about John a little bit, just as a foretaste of what's coming, a change that's coming, a harbinger of change.
There you go.
But it doesn't,
Oh, yeah, and when we get to the birth story, which we'll have, it's in the year of when so-and-so is governor, when so-and-so is king, when so-and-so was ruling the Roman Empire. This is how we're telling the story. Yeah, you're not picking up on Jewish king lineage, you're picking up on Roman rule stories to anchor this person. Here's some more things to consider. Luke is writing in a very stylized Greek. Okay, under his excellency's patronage, I'll pay you to write this, a sustained and enthralling narrative, such as those writings which might grace the libraries of the empire's elite. The preface of, you picked up on it, Theophilus. Who is Theophilus? We don't know who Theophilus. The name means, among other things, lover of God. So if sometimes you have names that mean that, like you have even today ladies who are named Grace or things like that. My father's name was Worth, by the way. They have names that could be about Theophilus. You're the lover of God, or is this really just more of a Christian? Good heavens, how could I have missed that one?
There you go.
You see how that can play? It could be one person, but it can also mean a dear Christian.
Yes.
I'm talking to all of you. Am I writing this to really one person or to all of you lovers of God out there? It's a bit of a stylized play that they would use in the Greek area. Luke's stylized prose is aimed at a man of letters, shall we say, and knowledge. He's named at this, who wants things thoroughly investigated. He sets the tone for his whole gospel with a sophisticated flourish, bases his writings on a careful, orderly, intellectual, and thoroughly complete investigation. Why? Because you smart ones in Rome or Greece, you want to know that this has all been thought out and planned out. You are expecting to know the truths for yourself. I will tell you, because I have researched this similarly educated, reliable witness, a doctor nonetheless, is going to tell you the truth. You all remind me of a very sophisticated, educated, very smart group here at Good Sam. Therefore, how did I start my introduction to you? I have done a very thorough and complete investigation. I have looked into 12 seminary professors right now. You heard that. Why? Because you want to know that I've done my homework. It's the same crowd here. So yeah, you're close to Luke's crowd if you want to know the truth. So that is how you start. Hey, we got one more to go. Oh, is he not like any of the others? Did anyone do John? You didn't get to John. Let's take a look at John together. And by the way, it's 2 slides, just to let you know.
Oh, okay.
So in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him, all things were made. All things. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. And in him was life. That life was the light of all mankind. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. In this case, John the Baptist we're referring to again. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. Key word by the way. Several key words in John already we have hit across. Life, believe. Remember those. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth.
John's definitely the most poetic.
Oh, John is poetic.
Cosmic.
Cosmic is good.
Yeah, I was gonna say the very beginning ties kind of the Trinity into creation.
Ah,
The logos. The
There you
beginning was
go.
the word.
it's all there.
The word that was there before
Mm-hmm.
he ever came.
Way, you're already picking up fast on these lessons. Good job, all of you. You're seeing it. Yeah, John draws his readers into a wholly different world to get us started by opening up with this cosmic view. Cosmic view of what? Of eternity. From the beginning of everything, nothing was made without God and this one being there. It's cosmic from the very beginning. Imagination, you see, your imagination is really needed. Not only to understand what this one's just written, but to imagine such abstract concepts as Creator God. You gotta approach this with John with belief and awe. You cannot just go for the facts. There was no one there but those two at the beginning creating everything. You think someone was a stenographer taking notes on what happened, and no. Oh, you have got to believe. You have got to believe and be awed. And did you pick up, go back one slide with me, if you can. How does it start? Where have we heard that before?
Genesis.
Opening words of the Older Testament there, Genesis 1:1, in the beginning. Yeah, in the beginning, tells the origins of the cosmos, of the human race. This witness of John's starts with this exact same phrase quite intentionally, and it will be a story about fresh beginnings, about a new human race is coming, the true light of creation. I have some commentators that will capitalize the word light if you are into the message at all. Capital L for light, capital L on life. I take it even further if you're ever listening to me preach. I will say the life they're talking about is not just existence, it's a capital L, italicized, exclamation point, life is what they're talking. Capital L, italicized, exclamation point. This is what we're saying. Language just is too limiting for what is taking place. The true light, capital L, of creation was in the world, and John has come to give testimony or witness to this light, so that it says, so that all may believe. In John, the final gospel to be written, It's gonna be towards the far end of this timeline. Jesus is not where Mark started out with a lot of humanity. No, when we get to this point, this is the God of all eternity. And from before his birth on through to the end and beyond, Jesus is striding upon the earth with hardly a pretense of humanity at all, you might recognize. There will be no agony in the garden where he is begging that this be taken from him. There will be no Judas's kiss to betray him. He is not at the mercy of someone else. All these things are going to start playing themselves out if we listen carefully to each one. That's how John is telling the story. Okay. So far, so good. It's a lot to take in, I know. We're getting there though. So you see, the opening of each gospel already positions us, the intended listeners, to hear all of that follows in this a very appropriate type of way. Just because they are written in this manner, very different, very stylized, very intentional, we should not regard the gospels as fiction, however, not even inspired fiction. That's not what they're writing. They are going to come to us as stories about a real man in a real place at a real time. Okay, our gospel writers have two things in mind. They are both creating, and they have a historical intent to tell us about, but they are also going to go alongside this theological intent. Their aim is to convey the truth about Jesus and Jesus's life in such a way that witnessed to their beliefs about God, especially how God is working through this one known as Jesus. Yeah, they thoroughly believe that they are writers of history. Maybe not with the same way our historians would write today. But they are writing history, recording far more, and this is far more important to them, far more than just bare facts. Okay? Their history was to speak to the heart, it was to speak to the soul. Their constituents needed good news. Their messages were relevant, authentic, God messages. So every gospel is written to give us not simply the writer's record of what Jesus, this is what he said, this is what he did, but it's also each one's understanding of this is who Jesus is. This is really what this means to all of us. I'll say that again. They're not just writing what Jesus said and did, but it is their understanding of who Jesus was and what he can mean to the reader. Okay, before we're out of here, let's cover the dating, shall we? All right. Quick word about dates is very important. This is where I have sort of overlaid things. It's helpful at this introductory time to know the timeline. I've already hinted on some of this. There is much uncertainty. I will just admit this right up front. Best scholars in the world are going to argue about the exact dates of all four gospels. Though, let's just say there is general agreement. This is it. They're not really radically different. They're just varying here and there. I'm going to overlay this with that one, and by the way, I'm pulling in this too. And this is the best I am going to work off of for the sake of making sense of this whole system. Let's, even though there's a little wiggle room for interpretation, but if we lay it out this way, watch what is going to happen. You're not going to see it all tonight, but as we move forward, it makes a lot of sense to me. Okay. Paul, we've referred to Paul. Letters to the Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Thessalonians, all those letters, he writes them in the 50s. Jesus died in the early 30s, of course. Okay. So, and a little thing about dating too. AD is kind of a Christian term, so we move away from calling it, AD anymore. It's now CE, the common era, is a little more palatable to our other religious friends out there than saying everything is AD. So, but Paul is in the 50s. Okay, so let's put him up here. Look it backwards a little bit. Fascinating things, but he is the earliest of the writings we understand. Mark will come along and probably be relevant really around mid-60s. Okay, somewhere around 65. Here comes Mark's writing, reflecting on the world at that point. Matthew is 10, 15 years later, 75 to 80. Luke will be shortly after that in the early 80s, is the general consensus. John is not going to show up until the 90s. Somebody do the quick math and tell me how old he is.
Pretty old.
This brought up about 3 questions in the Sunday morning. It's like, but, yeah, so the answer about is John really that old? Yeah, John was probably a teenager, so when it's believed when Jesus walked the earth. So he could be. It's also believed that this John was had a following. They called it a school around him. Like rabbis would have their students. So the general belief is like a lot of this is John, but it could have been also laid out by his group. John's school may have finished off some of this. Okay.
I guess I never assumed that any of these guys actually knew Jesus
Oh,
face to face.
but they are based, as they say, the eyewitnesses of these things, according to Luke anyway.
But Luke doesn't say he saw
He
that.
doesn't say
He met, he talked to people who experienced that. So.
It's also when we get to, well, even I think it's Mark. We'll come back next week and I'll tell you more. Mark has, I don't want to give it away. We'll come back next week for Mark. Okay. So why is dating important? Dating is important because as we will learn in all these other weeks coming up, you may not like this, but history and politics will have an influence on what is going on. Because history and politics affects life that we're living. It will influence what is written, how it is written. Dating creates the backdrop, which the good news is presented upon. I can tell you a quick little story about me going through seminary. I don't know about you, Christian, but I just did not like, I was a New Testament guy. I know I study Old Testament. Boring, until I had this professor named Carolyn Pressler. Oh, she's United Methodist, by the way. You're in the Twin Cities. She's amazing. She would come along, and here's this like one little sentence up on the board, and I describe it as she painted the picture around it of what was going on. Put all these pictures up here, and now here's this one line, and it's like, well, that's a pretty radical thing to say in that picture. I'm going to help paint some pictures for you because she brought things alive for me that made a world difference. And that's what we're doing here too. Let's look at what's going on around us. We do it because what goes on around us is how we hear things also. Remember, they're writing about all of them are writing about Jesus who was in the 30s. But to capture your ears, they will also refer to what's going on here. It's like if I were suddenly to refer to, let's just say a pandemic of endless chaos reverberated around us. That phrase is going to suddenly jump at you a lot more than it did 5 years ago. Or how the towers of strength have fallen. Well, now be a literary cue. That's very different since 9/11. You will also see them sometimes, oh, let's just say, oh, I'm talking about this, but I'm really talking about that. How many of you remember the movie and television show MASH? I dare say, do all of you know MASH? You probably didn't. The youngest people last time didn't know what MASH was. I thought that was hysterical, but it was like, MASH is, of course, the Mobile Army Surgical Hospital team that is out there with Alan Alda, and they're having a time during the Korean War, which was
Korean conflict.
conflict, excuse me, Korean conflict in the early 50s, but it didn't come out in the early 50s. It came out 1970. It came out,
And it went for a lot more years than the war.
and it really wasn't a commentary about the Korean conflict. It was a commentary about Vietnam. Oh, did they mess up history? Did they make it less poignant, less? They're telling you a story. They're telling you all these things. Well, guess what these authors of sophistication are doing also? They will use these devices to bring good news to the people of their day. Yeah. Finally, one of the most rewarding tactics will be to watch our authors and how they edit things. Okay. They were going to receive things and pass them along. For example, Mark came out early. Okay. Guess what? The next two, Matthew and Luke, they're going to cut and paste a lot from Mark. They also almost verbatim would cut and paste from, well, like 200 times, but it wasn't from Mark. So they have already determined, oh, there must be another source.
Yeah.
It's called the Quella, which means source. You know all this. Someone's taught you these things, I can tell you with me. So that is happening. All those things are happening. So, you know, you can look at things like, here's this passage very quickly. What do you think? A man owns 100 sheep, yada, yada, yada. Is that Matthew 18 or Luke 15? You go, it basically is both, you know, because they have cut and pasted. But we're going to watch how they put this together. This author may tell the story with this early on next to this story, while Luke puts it over here with that story. And now, how does that change things in how you tell the story? So in closing, we have an exciting history ahead of us of learning before all this happened, what is going on with these writings, what is going on. We're going to learn these throughout Lent. We will discover that the authors were working as hard as any modern historian, but with a highly different set of questions they are trying to answer. They are dedicated to telling the truth about Jesus, and they're also convinced that the truth was not fully accessible by simply dwelling on the superficial evidence and missing this underlying meaning of what God is all about. That would be disastrously missing the point of what they're trying to say. So they're going to be our witnesses. And one final thing to send you on your way. Do you know that we also have this word witnesses from the Greek? Except if you also look at the word in the Greek, it has another word that comes up, and the word is martyr. So our witnesses, believe it or not, are also the four who will, I believe, it is said that each one has died for their faith. If this was all a make-believe story, no one is going to go to their death for this, but this is their heart and soul belief of what God is doing through Jesus Christ. We would be wise, I think, to listen carefully, individually to each one and discover what their unique messages are to their distinct audiences and to us. So the good news is about to come forth. Next week, you may want to do a quick little flip through of Mark. We will get into Mark. The title will be Mark's Good News for the Persecuted. Hint, hint. So I let you go forth at 1 minute to 7 to say, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and you have a witness to share with your world. bring forth your good news of God to those around you. Have a much night.